Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You guys know who I am. I'm Dr. Angela Betchester, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on a fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. We are spending time today with Ramin Pourfarzib, and we are talking about his book, What is God's Revelation? So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Ray. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark TV.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on, and thank you for inviting me to spend a few minutes with you discussing my book.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we get started talking about your book, as is tradition around here, we realize that there may be some viewers that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So, first question is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
Great. So I am a father, a husband, a Christian, a deacon, a scientist, and an author. So I've written, this is my third book I've written, and really excited to speak about it with you and your audience today.
Absolutely. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that this was um, one of the ways in which you were able to share your knowledge with the world?
Great. So as a scientist, I've published a lot of non-Christian materials, scientific materials, but in the past 5, 6 years, I've gotten the passion to write more in faith-based, materials, as well as I continue to write stuff in scientifically as well. But it's been about 5 years that I've started to have the passion to write and share my beliefs to people that want to know more about why I became a Christian. I converted from Islam to Christianity, and people want to know. So I said, let me write versus having to explain myself over and over again.
I can understand that. Now, the title of your book, What is God's Revelation? How did you come about the title? Many times authors share that it came to them first and they wrote the story around, or they were writing and they had an aha moment and the title came to them. What's the story for you?
So it really derived from the second book, the Anointed One. And when I wrote that book, basically comparing the Old Testament and how it was fulfilled in the New Testament and all the messianic prophecies, one of the questions that people constantly ask me was around sort of what makes you sure there's a God, number one, and then what if there's a God, what makes you so sure that Christianity is a way. So it was through those questions that were raised that I wanted to address basically two really powerful questions, and that's why I wrote this book, What's God's Revelation? And I use God's revelation to, number one, address if there's a God. And number two, we have so many religions out there. What makes you so sure that Christianity is the way? So that was basically, I had a number of different titles for the book, but at the end, the book just constantly, reiterated to me that it's God's revelation, and it has to be God's revelation to know that this is the way and the truth. So that's how, the book finally I settled with the title, What's God's Revelation?
I love it. I love it. Now, I try to ask this question of every guest, and that is, would you say that your book is appropriate for someone as young as high school or like 16, 17 years old, or do they need to be more college age or older in order to follow the storyline?
So basically, the book really is for people, teenagers, 16, 14, 15, 16. When I look back when I was young, I read similar types of books. So I would say that's a good age, but really the book is written for both Christians and non-Christians, especially people of different faith looking at different, religions. And the focus of the book is to address people's questions and concerns, or things that they're trying to sort of research and understand about different faiths, as well as atheism. And that's the book. Also, the book is really good for people that are going to missions throughout the world, interacting with other religions, as well as ministry, a college ministry sort of setting as well. So that was the purpose of the way I wrote the book, was to really have multiple different individuals or groups that want to learn more about sort of atheism versus Christianity versus other religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Judaism, and others. So that's sort of the context of how I went about writing this book.
Mhm. Now, I usually ask, is this book geared towards a particular age group for a reason? Um, because there are so many people that realize that our children are not necessarily reading as much as they could. And what a great gift for, I'm one of those people that give books for graduation presents. So it is a great way to introduce a really great book to our young adults and get them inspired to not only read more, but to allow the book to engage their imaginations along the way. Now, you listed a lot of people that the book is good for, but you didn't mention one. So let me ask about that. And that is the book also a good read for those that are already Christian? Many times a book is geared towards someone who is new to the faith or someone that may be struggling with their faith. Would you say that your book is also an overall good read for someone who just wants to continue to read in the Christian genre?
Absolutely. And one thing that I address in the book is that as Christians, how well are we equipped to answer questions from other faiths and also atheists, regarding, what makes you sure that, your faith is the way. So it's definitely for individuals, especially individuals that are young Christians that are beginning to sort of grow in their faith, but also for Christians that have been, studying Christianity for many years, but they may not know sort of different faiths and their belief systems, their texts and what the messages they provide. So this book is geared for that, again, for both Christians that want to learn more about other faiths and how we can be confident in our faith and be able to address those questions. What makes you sure that your way is the way and not, let's say, another faith? So that's really the objective of this book, is to be able to help people that are Christians as well as non-Christians to know about Christianity and what are the differences between the faiths and what they say, and what is God's
Right.
revelation.
Now, when it comes to reading the book, I firmly believe that authors present the book in the way in which it should be consumed, meaning chapter one before chapter two, section one before section two. However, we do know that a lot of people like to, for example, read the last page of the book first to see if it's going to pique their interest. Others are maybe roulette readers, where they just open the book and see if that page sparks anything with them. What is the best way to read your book? Should we start with page first and read through last, or does that matter?
So it would be the sort of preface, would be a good start to sort of understand how is this book laid out and what's the objective of the book. So if anyone wants to read it, read that section, the pre-introductory section, to not explain, sort of what's the purpose of the book and what is the objective that I want to, sort of portray to the readers. So that's the start of the book. And again, like I said, it addresses two questions. One is there a God? So I addressed atheism, and then the rest of the book, the next 8, 9 chapters, is to address different religions, starting with the smallest in member size, and then ending with Christianity, which is the largest membership in the world.
Mhm. Now, many authors that I have spoken with said that there was a prompting, that there was a nudge, there was a moment in their lives where they could kind of pinpoint, if you will, when there was a shift for them and a knowing and understanding it is time to write this book. Now, it doesn't matter if you've written other books, not asking about those, talking about this particular one, because so many authors have written numerous books, myself included. But there seems to be a knowing when it is time to write a particular book. Did you have such a nudge or such a knowing as well?
It was, and it really was derived from the past 5, 6 years with a lot of, with the COVID as well as with just a lot of nonsense that's going on in our world. Sort of truth telling, what is right, what's wrong, and how not only in the US, but around the world, how the media sort of explains the news. And I see a lot of sort of misinformation. And that prompted me to start writing. And one of the misinformation that I hear a lot is about, well, there's different ways you could, go to heaven or be with God. And I want to address that question. And I want to sort of use the litmus test. I use 5 questions in my book to show that, looking at different faith, you as a reader need to be open-minded and be able to understand and study every religion, understand what they're saying, and then make your own mind. Is there revelation from God or is it from man? And that's what I did. The 5 litmus tests that I use in this book for each chapter, for the different faiths, is to address: did God reveal himself to that faith, to that religious leader? Were there any miracles performed? Were there any prophecies that were fulfilled? Was there any messenger that came to explain that there's going to be this leader that's going to come and fulfill those prophecies? So those were the questions I raised with each faith and examined each faith through their text, through their scriptures, and compared it to Judaism and Christianity. And so that's sort of trying to explain and make sure people are educated on the different faith, because I don't feel like they are. I feel like people blindly move to a faith without knowing the different faiths and what they say and what they mean. So hopefully this is and I've looked at different books. I not come across any book that does that uses a litmus test to address different faiths and what's God's revelation in each of these different faiths. So
Interesting, interesting. Well, it is time for us to take a very short break. But before we do, can you remind everyone what is the title of this book? And if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
thank you, Dr. Angela. So the name of the book, the title of the book is What's God's Revelation? And they can obtain it in any bookstores. Amazon.com carries it, and other places that sell books carry this book. Also, if they want to contact me, they can reach me at Pourfarzib.com. Very easy. My last name.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
There's something I need to tell you. This relationship isn't working. It isn't good for me. I'm breaking up with you.
It's not me, it's you. I became dependent on you. And you were always there for me, even when I was at my worst. But I didn't realize the damage you were doing. You created a toxic environment. Not just for me, but others too. You were suffocating me.
We're just no longer compatible. Also, there's one more thing. I met someone else.
I'm respected in public. I'm making friends. I feel like I can breathe again. That's how I deserve to be treated.
我们书店结束了。
तुम फिर से कभी नहीं मुझे दुख दोगे।
Ni siquiera te necesito.
Parce que j'ai une autre option.
And it's a healthy relationship.
For many people, a breast cancer diagnosis can feel like a battle they're facing alone. But we are in this together because there are mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our friends. NBCF rallies and screening, supporting, and serving communities across the country. Because every woman matters. Every story is powerful. Every voice makes a difference.
Just beat breast cancer.
And every dollar helps. Together, we rise. Are you in?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. Now, my next question for you is about how you determined what you would include in the book versus what you decided to exclude. How did you determine what you were going to put in what section at what time? What was that process like? Now, before you answer, I want to give my disclaimer that I always give, and that is, viewers, you know what I'm going to say. If you want to know all about the book, you've got to buy the book. If you want to know how the story ends, purchase a copy. So here we go. How did you determine, Ray, how you were going to include or exclude certain parts?
Right. So again, the focus of the book was to look at the different faiths, and there are over 4,300, and I'll talk about it in the book. There's over 4,300 types of religions and denominations. And to be able to fit all that into a book is impossible. It would require volumes of books. So what I did was I narrowed down to the top religions. So that 80-20% rule, I wanted to make sure I reach out to 80% of the population. And looking at that, the top 8 religious faiths, and this is according to the number of membership they have, that was how I came up with the different chapters. So I started with the smallest faith, and then I wrote different chapters according to their membership. The only place that's a little bit different is I combined Judaism and Christianity at the end, because if you combine the two, they're the largest, and they go hand in hand. So that's the only sort of difference. With Judaism, there's about 13 to 15 million Jewish people that practice Judaism. And then, of course, Christianity is the largest, 2.5 billion in size and growing. So that's how I divided my chapters into those sections, with the smallest religion, and then, with that being Confucianism, and then ending with Christianity. But with that being said, I kept those religions together. And then the first question that I had that I wanted to address, is there a God? I wanted to address atheism. And being a scientist, being in academia, you always taught Darwinism and evolution and so forth. So I wanted to address that first to set the stage. If there is a God, then how does he reveal himself in different faiths? And that's how I went about developing the various chapters.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that your background, both personal and professional, not being born and raised Christian, and as well as being a man of science, do you think that had an impact on how you chose to present this particular work?
Absolutely, absolutely. Both of those. So growing up in Middle East, and being raised there for about 10 years, and then we moved to the United States when I was almost 11. Um, seeing different faiths, and Islam being one of them, as well as when I was in the United States, growing up in, getting my PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, in biology and medicinal chemistry settings. A lot of classes teach sort of evolution and Darwinism as being science and fact, and it's not. People don't recognize that it's a theory. It's not even it's a fact. So I wanted to, so those were a lot of questions on my mind growing up as a young adult. How could there be so much discrepancy in thoughts and in beliefs? And you know, reading and studying the scripture, and then sort of in my late stages of life, becoming a deacon and becoming a ordained deacon and someone that teaches Christianity, really felt very sort of strongly that I need to write sort of my beliefs and why I believe it, and be able to address people's concerns. People do ask me, why did you change your faith? Being a scientist, why do you even believe in nonsense? There's no God. So I wanted to, because those things that sort of molded me to where I am today, and wanted to address those concerns in the various books, but especially in the latest one that I wrote, which is, again, addressing atheism as well as all the various faith around the world.
And it is quite interesting that more people don't realize that it is just a theory and that it is not fact, but it really has to do with how you present information, how people understand it to be true. So you definitely hit the nail on the head there. And I find that there are so many certain denominations help us understand evangelism, missions, and ministry from a different perspective than do others. I'm not throwing any particular denomination under the bus. Each one is really good at what they do, but I have found that there are some that focus a little bit more on exactly what you're talking about in helping those that are unchurched, dechurched, never been exposed to religion, are looking for a different religion, are in a stage of transition to understand better what Christianity is, what it offers, and how it differs from some of the other more popular organized religions. So I really think that your book is needed, especially for those who want to go into that field. I find that to be just a very helpful resource. Now, if there is one or two, I like to call them nuggets of wisdom, that you would like for the readers to make sure that they pick up by the time they get to the last page of this book, what are those two nuggets of wisdom?
Right. So the two nuggets of wisdom is that don't be afraid to study all different religions and faith. That's something that sort of I get upset when other faiths prevent you from sort of reading other religions. When I was in Middle East, it wasn't really very sort of forthcoming or people promoting that. So that's one thing that I want to emphasize. Study everything. Don't trust me or don't trust what I say. Study it for yourself and be well versed in other faith. That's number one. And number two, really do study God's revelation, and does God speak to the different faiths? And if it does, then by all means, I love to have that conversation and that debate, because from my studies and from what I've seen in different scriptures, there's only one faith that prophesied about the Messiah that was fulfilled, but through Jesus, and he did fulfill in the New Testament what the Old Testament prophets were talking about, or what they were trying to tell us. So those are the two things that I would highly recommend, is that don't limit yourself, Christians or non-Christians, don't limit yourself in just reading one scripture. Read it all, understand it all, and for yourself, make that decision. What is the truth? For me, I hopefully, wrote, sort of, and explained how I came to the conclusion that there's only one way. And, John 3:16 says it. It says it eloquently that, God so loved the world that he gave his son for our sins. Okay. So that's, from that, I have not seen anything like that in other religion. And then the other thing I want to emphasize as well is that when I study the various religions, it's very world-centered, self-centered, whereas in Christianity, it's God-centered. And to me, that was the biggest takeaway of when I studied the various faiths and Christianity is it's God-centered. It is through God's grace that we are forgiven. And hopefully that's the message that by the end of the chapters you read, that's like it was God's gift of grace for us to be saved, not for our good works or what we can do in this world, but it's through God's grace and God's gift, and that's the main point I want people to take when they study the various faiths.
I love it. I love it. And I love how many times, especially with in the book of John, how he takes you along on the journey and he says something that you can, even if you're not very well versed, you're able to go, that sounds awfully familiar, because he is referencing what was in the Old Testament, or he's using some phrase so that you understand that these two things are connected and these two things go together. See Christ's divinity right here in front of us. And I absolutely love that he does that. I love it. I love it. Well, Ray, thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. I have enjoyed my conversation with you, and I hope that you have continued successes with the book. We know that the book is doing really well, and I'm so glad that you were able to come on and share it with my viewers today. Now, before I let you go, though, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? And if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Great. First of all, thank you, Dr. Angela. It was a pleasure meeting with you and speaking with you and sharing the book with you. The title of the book is What's God's Revelation? And if people want to reach out to me, they could reach out to me, Pourfarzib.com.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of that book. Now, I also wish that we have inspired you. I hope that we have enlightened and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hi, do you have something to share? Be a guest. Want to sponsor an episode? Visit drangela.chester.com. Thanks again for watching Daily Spark TV.